Thanks again for tuning into Moonshine Gaming. We're going to be doing another top 10 video today. We're going to be doing the top 10 best movies based on video games. So there's only really one rule for this video. It's that the video game had to have come out before the movie, obviously. And what we've done is we've taken the average critic and user score across Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Metacritic. So let's get into it. First up on the list, we've got Silent Hill, which came out in 2006, and this movie was actually pretty damn scary. It wasn't working with a really big budget, so at times the special effects were kind of questionable, but you know, the way they portrayed the characters from the Silent Hill franchise actually made for a pretty horrifying flick. As a Silent Hill fan myself, seeing Pyramid Head on the big screen was absolutely epic. What I would say about this movie is that if you were a fan of Silent Hill and then went and saw this movie, it's probably exactly what you were expecting and you definitely will get a kick out of it. But if you're not a fan of the Silent Hill series and maybe just hadn't even heard of the game and were just going to see a scary movie, you may be a bit underwhelmed, but still decent movie. This movie got an average score of 54 out of 100. Let me start by saying that none of these movies have a really high average score. They're all pretty low in the grand scheme of things, but hey, these are the best of the video game movies, so let's move on. Next up, we've got Resident Evil, which came out in 2002, and this was the first of what seemed like the never-ending string of subpar Resident Evil movies that came out from 2002 till now. I think they're up to 6. But this is definitely the best one of the 6.
But they have only 3 hours left before it begins infecting and mutating the whole human race.
They only briefly touch on the Resident Evil lore in this film, but I think the reason for that is because this movie is so action-packed, it just seems like the action never stops, so it makes sense why they wouldn't dive too deep into the lore. This movie was casted pretty well. Mila Jovovich as the main character Alice puts on an amazing performance, and then we also have Michelle Rodriguez, who's always great. It seemed like a lot of horror movies in the early 2000s were kind of doing that. Group of people go to a haunted house, starts off really slow and then gets scary near the end, and Resident Evil kind of broke that mold, and I think that was a good call. This one got an average score of 54.2 out of 100. Next up, we've got Tomb Raider, which came out in 2018, and they were following the footsteps of the video game franchise, it seemed, which rebooted the game in 2013, and they were rebooting the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider from previously. Again, another great cast in this movie. Alicia Vikander, who portrays Lara Croft, does a great job. She's also an Oscar winner.
I think I know where my dad went.
That's right in the middle of the Devil's Sea.
It will be an adventure.
Death is not an adventure.
In the movie, they're trying to make Lara Croft a little grittier than the Angelina Jolie version, and this is kind of a conflict with the dry humor that they're also going for, but luckily, Alicia Vikander's on-screen charisma makes up for it and makes it work. The special effects in this movie are great. The computer-generated, gravity-defying jumps are incredible and exactly what you want to see out of a Tomb Raider adaptation. I think if they were to make a sequel of this movie, Alicia Vikander could really settle into the role, and I really think that they could make something special happen if they decide to do that. Tomb Raider got an average score of 54.4 out of 100. Next up, we've got Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which came out in 2010. We've got Jake Gyllenhaal playing the main character. I was kind of surprised to see this so high on the list. It's not a horrible movie, but it's not great. Although I will say that the storyline does keep you hooked and makes you want to keep watching the movie all the way to the end. I think my favorite thing about this movie is the amount of cheesy one-liners in it. It's great.
You really enjoy telling me what to do, don't you?
Only because you're so good at following orders.
Yeah, don't press your luck.
This movie got an average rating of 56.6 out of 100. Next up, we've got Warcraft, which came out in 2016. And I think when Hollywood picked up this movie, they were kind of hoping for Lord of the Rings level fandom. But as we all know, that didn't really happen. They just threw a massive budget at an acclaimed director and let him run wild. It turned out decent. It actually did really well in the box office. It was actually the best performing video game adaptation of all time. Made $433 million, which is insane.
This doesn't need to happen. There is one who may help us.
For orcs, there is no other life but war.
I was a little surprised that the two biggest stars in the movie, Dominic Cooper and Ruth Negga, were not the lead roles, but hey. With such a big budget, of course the special effects were going to be incredible, so that it definitely had that going for it. If you're a Warcraft fan and you like special effects and action-packed movies, you know, you're going to like this movie. It got an average score of 57.2 out of 100. If you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit that like. Next up, we've got Rampage, which came out in 2018. And this one's got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yes, the legend. Now, even though this got a higher average rating, my heart is still set with Doom when it comes to The Rock and video game adaptations, but hey, that's just me. My favorite part about this film is that it doesn't really take itself seriously. You know, it's almost on Sharknado levels with the amount of ridiculousness and wackiness, but it's still really entertaining.
It's weird. You like hang out with animals more than people.
Yeah, well, animals get me.
It's just so hard for me to not like a movie with The Rock in it, you know? I love that guy. The destruction scenes in the movies are truly reminiscent of the actual game Rampage. That's really cool. This movie is just full of solid, action-heavy entertainment, and I'm into it. Rampage got an average score of 57.4 out of 100. Next up, we got Mortal Kombat the Reboot, which came out in 2021. The special effects and fight scenes in this movie alone have got to be why it's so high on this list. This one plucks the nostalgia heartstrings pretty good too. It's got a ton of the characters from the original series. We got Sonya Blade, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Liu Kang, and my personal go-to when I play Mortal Kombat, Jax.
I'm Sonya. That's Kano.
I'm Liu Kang.
Name's Jax.
The dialogue in this movie can be a bit clunky at times, but I guess it kind of makes sense because of all the blunt force trauma that the characters are enduring through the movie. If you're a fan of the Mortal Kombat series, you're definitely going to love this movie. Finally, breaking the 60 barrier, Mortal Kombat gets an average score of 62 out of 100. Next up, we've got Detective Pikachu, which came out in 2019. And I think it's safe to say that we knew this movie was going to be pretty good when we heard that Ryan Reynolds was going to be voicing Pikachu. It's a live-action animation hybrid, and they nail it.
Whoever you are, I know how to use this.
Oh, jeez. Here we go.
I know, you can't understand me, but put down the stapler or I will electrocute you.
It's got to be awesome for Pokemon fans to see how immersive this world really is, being able to see it in real life in this film. Pretty solid storyline too. There was one point in the movie that I was almost in tears. I'm not ashamed to say that. The only thing that I didn't really like about the movie is that some of the human characters fall a little flat and are a bit boring to me. But you know, Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu makes up for this 100%. He makes the movie amazing. Cracking into the top 3, Detective Pikachu gets an average score of 67.8 out of 100. Next up, we've got The Angry Birds Movie 2, which came out in 2019. And this is another one that I was really surprised to see so high on this list after averaging out all the reviews. It's got a great voice cast. It's got Peter Dinklage, Danny McBride, Nicki Minaj, Awkwafina, and it's just an overall fun movie. At the surface, it seems like it's just your average kids movie, but there is enough there that adults will enjoy this too, and people of all ages will enjoy it.
Guys, this is my sister, Silver.
I just don't think you're going to be compatible with the team.
Oh, wow. It is such a pleasure to meet not you, but you!
I like her.
It's got sharp animation, lots of colors, and yeah, this is a surprisingly good movie. Angry Birds 2 got an average score of 69.8 out of 100. Here we go, number 1. we got Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out in 2020. And I'm sure you guys all remember the initial Sonic design before the movie was released and how it was like kind of nightmare fuel. You know, it pretty much looked like a small human boy who had been cursed by a witch. But luckily, thanks to revised CGI, they were able to turn him into the Sonic that we all wanted.
We have no choice.
What the?
Are you in charge here?
Yes, I am.
Nope!
I'm
Wrong. I'm in charge.
Allow me to clarify. In a sequentially ranked hierarchy based on level of critical importance, the disparity between us is too vast to quantify. Agent Stone?
The doctor thinks you're basic.
Listen, pal, I don't know if you realize
I'm sorry, Major. What was your name? Benny.
Nobody cares!
This movie is great. It's got the perfect amount of humor, silliness, heart. You know, it's got over-the-top Jim Carrey. And it's great to see him in this film because we haven't seen him in much in a while and he's been, you know, doing his own thing. But seeing him back to the good old Jim Carrey was great. It's got a great story. Great story about friendship, family, lots of laughs. Sonic the Hedgehog is definitely deserving of this #1 spot. It's got an average score of 70 out of 100. And that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed the top 10 best movies based on video games. And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Moonshine Gaming for lots of awesome video game content. See you next time.